I'm Jason Horsch, owner of Xanadu Gallery in Scottsdale and Pine Top, Arizona, and this is a moment in art history. Today's painting is Self-Portrait as the Allegory of Painting by Artemisia Gentileschi. Artists have been depicting themselves in their work since the beginning of art. But it wasn't until the early Renaissance that the self-portrait really began to take off. Since then, many of the world's most well-known artists, from Rembrandt to Van Gogh, produced masterpieces featuring themselves as the subject. It's always interesting to see the ways artists choose to present themselves. In Artemisia Gentileschi's famous self-portrait, she chooses to show herself in action, painting. The composition of the painting mirrors other works of the time, using diagonal lines to flaunt the female figure and emphasize her movement, both in toward the canvas and out towards the viewer. The application of foreshortening and other three-dimensional techniques not only demonstrates Gentileschi's talent as an artist, but also brings the viewer into the painting on physical and emotional levels. It's not just Artemisia's artistic skill that makes this self-portrait stand out, however. Art historians have proposed that the painting is not only a self-portrait, but also an allegory inspired by the iconography of Cesare Ripa. In his book Iconologia, Ripa gave instructions for the best ways to represent virtues and other abstract concepts in human form. The art of painting, Ripa said, should be shown as, quote, a beautiful woman with full black hair, disheveled and twisted in various ways, with arched eyebrows that show imaginative thought, the mouth covered with a cloth tied behind her ears, with a chain of gold at her throat from which hangs a mask and has written in front, imitation. She holds in her hand a brush and in the other the palette, with clothes of evanescently covered drapery. Aside from not having a cloth covering her mouth, Artemisia's self-portrait almost perfectly matches this description. In a time when men dominated the arts, Artemisia's choice to represent herself as the concept of painting, the epitome of her art, would have been bold. But art historian Mary Garrard has pointed out that only a woman artist could present herself in this way because Ripa's allegorical figures were always represented as women. Looking at her masterful body of work and the fame she achieved as a painter during her lifetime, Artemisia's allegorical self-portrait fits. Artemisia was born in Rome to Tuscan painter Orazio Gentileschi. After losing her mother when she was young, she studied under her father and quickly became a skilled painter. Her father collaborated with a number of other Baroque-era artists, including Agostino Tusi, who he asked to continue teaching Artemisia. Unfortunately, Tusi took advantage of his position in Artemisia's household to exploit her sexually. Though Artemisia's father eventually pressed charges, Artemisia wasn't met with sympathy as much as judgment and suspicion during her 7-month trial. During the course of the trial, Artemisia underwent public medical examination and was tortured to verify her testimony. In the end, Tusi was sentenced to exile, but the sentence was never carried out, despite the fact that he was a repeat offender. Though this traumatic experience likely influenced her work, Artemisia's masterful representations of powerful women, including herself, largely capture her determination to continue with her chosen path despite these obstacles. After her father arranged for her to marry a poor artist from Florence, Artemisia went there to live with him for a few years, and this was where she really started to gain popularity and acclaim. She became the first woman accepted into the Academy of the Arts and Drawing and started making connections with the Grand Duke of Tuscany and other Florentine elites and professionals, including Galileo. I can only imagine the conversations these two controversial Baroque geniuses must have had about the arts and sciences. During her time in Florence, Artemisia was also commissioned by a relative of Michelangelo, along with other notable artists in Florence, to paint on the ceiling of the Casa Buonarroti to celebrate the famous artist of David, the Pietà, and the Sistine Chapel. For the project, Artemisia painted another Ripa-inspired allegorical figure, the Allegory of Inclination. Later, Artemisia spent time in Rome, Venice, and Naples before joining her father in the court of King Charles I in England. It's likely that she painted self-portrait as the allegory of painting during her time there. Charles I became an enthusiastic collector of Artemisia's work, including this self-portrait, which remains in the British Royal Collection to this day. Artemisia has come to be the most celebrated female artist of the 17th century. I would love to hear your impressions of Artemisia's self-portrait. What do you think of the piece? Do you think that her choice to represent herself as the epitome of painting was justified? If you're an artist, have you created a self-portrait? And what did you learn through the experience? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining me for another moment in art history. If you enjoyed this bit of art history, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Facebook, or sign up for my newsletter to be notified about future art history videos.